Oh, Jorge, I don't know. It was a rough show to watch. Lots of drama and oh, hi! It's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 13, Episode 2. And don't forget, I'm also reviewing this week's Untucked, so stay tuned for that too. But before we get into it, I want to thank this week's Tipperdoos: Tim Eller, Preston Firestone, John Lynn, Bradley May, Brady Calhoun, Vito Bocuzzi, and Joe Van Patten. You're all dolls. Thanks so much. If you'd like to leave me a tip on PayPal or support me on Patreon, all the links are down below. Now, let's get to it. Jorge, drink me. What is this? Maple liqueur? How did you know my drag queen name in high school? Oh, yes, this is... I'm so excited. Oh, yes, here we go. This was sent to me by the lovely John Dwyer. It's from Waterville, Carleton County in New Brunswick. It's Moonshine Creek. That's the name of the distillery. This is called Canadiana, and it's alcohol that's made with 100% organic maple syrup. I'm so excited. On the Moonshine website, they had a fantastic recipe for a pina colada. Well, unfortunately, we don't have all the ingredients for a pina colada, so I'm just going to have it on soda water. But I wanted to try this on its own first. Ooh, smooth with a hint of maple, but totally moonshiny. Yummy. So, let's get to it. First off, can I just say, the queens were put through it this week. 2 fashion looks, a group performance, and full runway. Well, if anyone was left wanting after last week's episode, this week more than made up for it. I'm so serious. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We kicked this episode off where we more or less left things last week. On the Porkchop loading dock with our mouths wide open. Sounds sexy, but it isn't. The Porkchoppers had a second chance to stay in the game. All they had to do was vote off another queen. Done. I don't know what the problem was with some of these queens, but if it were down to me and anyone else, I'm going with anyone else every time. But if I were going to pick someone, it would have been Chicken Feathers. Just saying. This was very intensely filmed. Every queen seemed fraught with the weight of their decision. Hell, did you see JJ watching Tamisha as she walked past her? Clearly looking for a sign as to whether she'd voted for her or not. But when the votes were calculated, there was a tie, shut your face, between 2T's and Utica. Oh, it broke my heart that Utica was one of them. I thought for sure it was going to be JJ. So, to break the tie, the queens had to vote again. And this time, it was unanimous. Elliot and her 2T's got the vote and sashayed out of the loading dock. And, understandably, she was not pleased. Who would be? The next day, the winner's circle entered the workroom ready for their first official day and inevitable challenge. Olivia was feeling the pressure of expectations due to the fact that they'd all won their lip syncs, which led the other queens to wonder what was going on with the other queens. Tina, for one, wasn't going to be too happy if, after already eliminating them, they came back. Brace yourself. Candy was called out for being a drama mama, mostly by Tina Burner, who called Candy Captain Trouble, but that's mostly because she's worked with her in New York. Clearly, someone has a reputation. But before Tina could elaborate, Ru's video message about the fickle finger of fate interrupted them and apparently confused them because they were still scratching their heads when Ru arrived in a hat. Feels like there should be shade there. The first thing Ru did was bring Elliot back into the competition. What? The other queens voted her off. Now she's in? If we as the audience were surprised, imagine what the queens were thinking. Well, we don't have to imagine it. We heard it. Gottmik called her Angel Twink, which I wish was my drag queen name in high school. Tina Burner was mad because, well, she just eliminated Elliot, or so she thought. Everyone was gooped. Why was she back? What did she do to not be eliminated? Is she a spy in the House of Drag? They were filled with questions. But before the villagers could light their torches, Ru took the opportunity to point out that no queen who's ever been on Drag Race is a loser. And even queens like Porkchop, Shangela, and Vanjie, who were all voted off first, have gone on to bigger and brighter careers. Okay, well, not Porkchop, but the other two for sure. I'm also glad that Ru touched on not letting public opinion diminish them or make them feel like losers. I don't know when the internet got so touchy and abusive, but we have to remember it's okay to disagree with people. Just because someone has a different opinion than you doesn't make them wrong or unworthy of respect. Shame on us all, seriously. And with those encouraging words ringing in their ears, it was on to this week's mini challenge, Day to Night Runway. Yes, that's right, 2 looks. Daytime lady look and a hoary night look. Or just basically club wear, I don't know. All the queens were excited to get ready and strut their stuff. And while they did, some of them got vocal about Elliott and what she was up to. It was shady. Candy hollered across the room to Tina about already sending Elliott home, and Tina yelled back, "You can send a queen home here, yet here they are." Obviously, they wanted her to hear them, and it became very clear very quickly that everyone thought she was there as a spy, even though no one said a word to her. Candy talked about feeling like a Ru girl even before she walked in because her drag mother is Aja from season 9 and her drag sister is Dahlia Sin from season 12. Well, that's when Elliott decided to open her gob. She pointed out to Candy that a surprisingly high number of drag daughters, 2 past Ru girls, have gone home early, if not first, including her sister Dahlia Sin. I still don't know what Elliott was thinking. Clearly, these queens weren't feeling her, and she decides to draw a line in the glitter and come for the loudest one in the bunch? Well, let the love fest begin. Everyone was gagged. If there was any doubt about Elliott's motives before, there was no doubt now for those queens that Elliott was only there to cause a commotion. And possibly get beat up by Candy. I'm just saying. But before anyone could get too riled up, it was time for the fashion show. Got Mixed Vinyl Rainbow Sky was gorgeous. I loved that the shoulders were removable, but what I loved more was that she hadn't painted her face white. But as much as I liked her day look, that evening look was everything. She really impressed me with this look. I also loved hearing her talk about how fabulous she feels about her chest since top surgery. Here's to you, Gottmik, seriously. Candy Muse's day look was involved. It looked more like theater than day wear. Ru's Rock Me Amadeus call out to Falco was hilarious. And if you don't know what I just said, you're too young to be my friend. As for Candy's nightwear, I wasn't a fan. If her daywear looked like a costume, then her nightwear looked like Party City to me. And that black circle on the back of it filled me with questions. And they weren't good. I liked Lala's day look, but it was simple. There was a lot of dress for that pattern to be on, if you know what I'm saying. And if it had been shorter, she might not have got her heel caught up in it, I'm just saying. I liked her nightwear a lot better. Sure, it looked cheap, but that's why you wear it at night. Seriously. Olivia looked cute in her lavender fantasy, complete with little purse, but her nightwear was gorgeous. I don't know her well enough to know that Olivia usually doesn't wear dark wigs, but this look was everything. My only complaint was that nude illusion running down the front of it didn't match her tights. And I think she knew it too, because she looked like she was trying to hide it with her purse. Her itty bitty purse. Simone's day look wasn't my favorite, but I thought she looked fantastic. Personally, I would have preferred it without the cape. It was just all a little too much to look at for me. Her evening wear was lovely, though. It reminded me of the opening credit outfits on Girlfriends, all asymmetrical and tied in places. Just gorgeous. Tina Burner was next, and I have to ask, is she going to wear orange all season? Don't get me wrong, I love orange, but every time? I didn't mind this look, but it was way more evening wear to me than day. As for Tina's nightwear, no. She looked like candy corn in a harness. Why? Thank God Elliott didn't suck, I'm so serious. I thought she looked gorgeous in her simple 80s red jersey dress, but her nightwear was everything. I love a top hat, I love black feathers, and I love a red wig. This was a great look for Elliott to close the show in. Back in the workroom, the queens de-dragged, and Candy was still fuming over Elliott coming for her, and probably why she still thought she was a spy. But before she could think more about it, Ru showed up with this week's Maxi challenge. The queens had to write their own verse for Ru's song, Condragulations, and perform as a group on the main stage to their own choreography. Well, right out of the gate, this challenge was right up Tina and Olivia's alley. Tina was confident with her lyrics skills thanks to her boy band career, while Olivia was excited because she actually writes her own music. The rest of the queens were so happy for them. Most of the queens were getting caught up in the fact that whatever they wrote, it would live in infamy on the interwebs. As impossible a task as this felt, Candy pointed out that no matter what, they should all feel confident going into this challenge because they all won their lip syncs. Well, not everyone. Another obstacle in this challenge was that the queens had to create their own choreography, which was more like the blind leading the blind. I don't know what Elliott was thinking, but her not stepping up as a dancer then and there when she had a chance was a choice. But because she didn't, the queens struggled to get even the simplest things down. Tina Burner tried to help and wasn't near as bossy as I thought she would be. Then, when Elliott did decide to add her 2 cents to the mix, the other queens weren't impressed. Why did she wait so long? It's like she wants them to hate her. Something else that was a surprise was Gottmik getting caught up in a surprise wave of gender dysmorphia, and it deflated him. It broke my heart to watch, but I get it. There's such a disconnect between drag and the trans community. Both sides have their issues, and I can imagine how difficult it must have to be to come out to a new group of people and worry if they're going to be the ones with issues. Also, the concept of a biological woman coming out as a trans male, having top surgery, and still doing drag is a lot for the average head to get around, which is why it's so important for people to hear a story like Gottmik's. Seriously. The next day, the queens were in performance mode as they got ready for the challenge. Olivia and Mick talked about Mick's mood yesterday and his surprise gender dysmorphia, and I'm so glad they did. I can't think of a more lovely person to confide in than Miss Olivia, and it looked like it helped Mick out a lot. Simone was still fretting over the choreography, but Candy seemed to talk her through it, ironically. Tina confronted Elliott once and for all to find out what had happened out on the Porkchop loading dock, and as gagged as the queens were that Elliott got voted out a second time, they were all worried about the other queens possibly entering the workroom. And yes, unless Lala counts a tie as an elimination, Elliott was only kicked out twice. Seriously. As they continued to get ready, Candy admitted that if she had to send someone home, it would be her biggest competition, aka Tina Burner. Didn't we learn anything from Morgan McMichaels and Dela? Seriously. Obviously not, because Candy's comments started all the queens saying who they thought was competition. As for the other queens, they all seemed to either pick Gottmik or Tina. No one seemed to think of Olivia as a threat, but she didn't let that get her down. Then it was time for the runway. Ru looked gorgeous in her frilly sequins dress. I love Michelle's new do with the silver streak. It's so Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. Ross was back to put out, or some such thing, I wasn't listening. Jamal Sims was there as well, looking all kinds of gorgeous in another fabulous suit designed by his husband, Octavius Terry. First up, the winner's circle and Elliott's performance of Condragulations. This was fun. I loved the big silver balls floating up to the sky. I don't know why. Gottmik was the first solo, and I thought she did well. I loved her singing voice. I thought Candy was doing well until I noticed she forgot her own words. Not that I was able to understand most of them. And she forgot her choreography. Too bad she wasn't paying attention to the advice she gave Simone in the workroom, I'm just saying. Lala rocked it and looked gorgeous, even if she was wearing a leotard. Olivia killed it as well. She had the best verse and she sounded beautiful. Simone looked gorgeous and sold her verse with her fabulous attitude. Tina did very well with her rap, but I hated her outfit, no offense. It distracted me. Elliott rocked it both with her look and her performance. You could see a couple of those queens sweat. All in all, I thought this was the strongest group performance on RuPaul's Drag Race in a long time, I'm just saying. And then it was on to the runway. Category is Lamé You Stay. Gottmik took my breath away, but I wish the outfit didn't have that cape. I wanted to see the details, and I thought the cape ruined it for me. I'm just saying. Candy was cute in her Austin Powers negligee set, but it was very simple and didn't look like Lamé to me. Lala Reese was the only outfit that screamed Lamé the minute you saw it, and I thought she looked gorgeous in it. I have to say I wasn't impressed with Olivia's look. Not that she didn't look good. I just thought it was too subtle, and I wasn't getting Lamé from it either. There was nothing subtle about Simone's runway. I love that she didn't have a dress like everyone else. Who else wants a Lamé boxing robe? Tina's Tin Man was good too. The axe purse was everything, but the best thing about it was that it wasn't orange. Elliot's runway was an 80s fantasy on ice, and if you ask me, was her best outfit of the night. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. For the most part, everyone liked Gottmik. Her fashion looks were versatile and unique, as was her Lamé look, but they all felt her diminish a bit in her performance. Michelle seemed to have issues with Candy's fashion looks, while Ross gushed over her energy, and everyone called her out on her messed up choreography. Ross wasn't a fan of Lala's first fashion look, but everyone loved Lala's energy and her 24-karat realness in the performance. Then Ru and Lala reminisced about Atlanta clubs of days gone by. It was beautiful. Olivia Lux was another judge's favorite. No one had a negative comment for anything. Here's to you, Olivia, seriously. Simone was another fave of the judges. From the fashion she threw on the runway and her performance on the main stage, all the judges agreed Simone has star quality. Everyone seemed thrilled that Tina wasn't wearing orange for her runway. Jamal was impressed with her lip sync, and Michelle gave Tina some tips about performing in front of a camera. Or using poppers, I'm still not sure. Elliot impressed the judges just for getting through the roller coaster of last week, never mind the fact that she killed her performance. All in all, there was a lot of praise and tears of gratitude for our first official runway of the season, and then it was time to enter the Untucked Lounge. Back in the Untucked Lounge, the queens went through it. Simone was riding a high after being called a star by the judges. Olivia was feeling great about her feedback too, of course. Lala was worried about the critiques of her day tonight looks, but was loving that Michelle said her skin was beautiful. I have to admit, I cried a little bit. I love that Lala's getting that kind of praise after having a lifetime of being judged and ridiculed for something outside of her control. Here's to you, Lala. Seriously, gorgeous. Candy was worried. The judges didn't love her as much as she thought they would. Too bad. Elliot, who seems to be the queen who's destined to ostracize the rest of the cast, called Tina Nina. But she was very grateful that the queens weren't too openly hostile towards her, invading the workroom. Well, they were fine until she called Tina Nina, I'm just saying. Elliot talking about getting eliminated the second she walked in clearly got to Candy. She was Demi Moore and Ghost crying there on the sofa. The thought of all the work she did to get there, only to possibly go home so early, was too much for her, especially after her sister Dahlia Sin did just that last season. The queens debated who was in the top, and they all agreed that it was down to Olivia, Simone, and Tina, but they were all sure that Gottmik and Candy were in the bottom. That's why Gottmik chose that moment to come out as a transgendered guy and to share why she'd had all that trouble during the rehearsal for the challenge. The support she got from the other queens was heartwarming as well, and they all agreed that Gottmik was changing the landscape of drag forever. How do you not like that? It became a very kumbaya moment in that workroom. The queens were very supportive of everyone's drag and talent level and were learning new things just being around each other. For instance, Lala admitted that she learned it was called Lamé and not lame. Bless. And then the queens got back into game mode as Candy and Gottmik were convinced that they were lip-syncing for their lives. Back on the main stage, it was announced that Olivia and Simone were this week's top queens. The rest of the queens were safe, much to Candy and Gottmik's relief, no kidding. Simone and Olivia had to lip sync for their legacy and $5,000. Once Simone heard that, it was all over for Olivia. Not that Olivia didn't do a great job, she did, but Simone just oozed crazy, sexy, cool, and unfortunately for Olivia, was a clear winner for this week's lip sync, I'm sorry to say. So, what do you think? Week 2 and still no elimination? From what I could see with next week's teaser, it looks like the rest of the Porkchoppers will be duking it out to get back in the competition. Who knows? Maybe we'll finally see an elimination. All we can do is tune into RuPaul's Drag Race next week to find out. Then, when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Until next week, Miss me? Mwah! Seriously, Jorge. 2 weeks without an elimination. Seriously. If they don't have an elimination at the end of next week's episode, I'm going to eliminate somebody. I'm not talking about anyone on the show. I just take someone out randomly in the street, you know. Like a good neighbor, share the love. Every time I start filming, there's some kind of tragedy outside. Do you think I'm responsible?